Welcome back to After the Whistle, everybody. It's me, Colby Allen, your host. We're going to jump right into Week 12's action. Actually, it was Week 13. I get confused on the week numbers. Y'all have to forgive me on that one. It's like every week it's something, 12, 13, 14, 11, 10, whatever. Get confused. But we will jump into Week 13's recap here in just a few minutes. First, I'd like to say, if this is your first time joining the show, welcome. If you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon, appreciate wherever you listen. The fact that you were listening means a lot to me, and can't thank you enough on that. If you are listening on YouTube and Spotify and all these other platforms the show is available on, please be sure to like and subscribe on the show. That way you don't miss out on any new content, any news, or anything related to those things. Be sure to do that. So, first things first, I would like to start the show off with a little bit of a piece of news that kind of eager to share, I guess. We, and when I say we, as in After the Whistle, have talked to Lane Kiffin directly. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Colby, this is crazy. This can't be true, but we have talked to Lane Kiffin directly. I know where Lane Kiffin's going. And if you'll stick with me for just a few minutes, I'll tell you about the content of the conversation, and then you will be able to find out that I am just completely feeding you a line of bull crap, because that's what a lot of people are doing, right? That's what a lot of people around the college football media space are doing with this Lane Kiffin thing at this very moment. False stories, false narratives, everything like that. I figured I'd just have a little fun with y'all here at the top of the episode today. But that's what we're seeing, right? We're seeing this guy over here saying that he's going to LSU. This guy saying that there's a deal on the table of 7 years and $90 million. This guy over here saying that he's going to Florida. This guy saying he's staying at Ole Miss. And the ultimatum of Ole Miss telling him, you got to make a decision. We have to be careful sometimes with the way that we handle these situations, because it's not so much like Lane Kiffin's a grown man. I don't think it's not going to affect him negatively or anything like that. What we have to watch, especially someone in the media space, you have to kind of watch your credibility when you do stuff like this. When you put out a report, I guess, and you're telling people, hey, he's going to do this or this, you're putting this information out there, releasing it into the world on the internet, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be Instagram, or whatever social media platform you choose to use. You put this information out there, people consume it, and then some people take it to be true. Some people might look at it and go, I'm still skeptical. But the problem with a lot of media in today's day and age, and this is a college football show. If you know me personally, you know my political stance. But this is not a political show. This is a college football show. But the media problems that we face on a day-to-day basis in the political space, the same issues rear their ugly head in the sports, football, college football space. It's more important now to these reporters to get the news out first. It's more important for them to be the first person to break the news. They don't care that the information that they're getting fed is accurate. They don't care. They're just taking that information and releasing it to the public so that if what they're saying turns out to be true, that they can say they were the first person to do it. That's a dangerous game to be playing, because it breeds a lot of misinformation in the media space. And you have situations like the Lane Kiffin situation that arise from it, where here we are now, and this group over here is saying LSU, this group is saying Florida, this group is saying he's staying at Ole Miss, and it's not a secret that when you go and look up the source of these rumors of people saying he's going to LSU, well, that guy's Joe Bob. He runs a message board for the LSU Tigers. And we've got to stop with the message board people that say, I'm an insider because I know somebody that knows somebody that's a decision maker at LSU and they said this. Like, just stop. If you're not willing to have the cojones to be public, then don't gaslight people and don't tell people that you know what a coach is doing, because I don't put any stock in message boards whatsoever, especially anonymous, like people under an anonymous name. Because if you felt like your news was groundbreaking and you knew the answer, you would be public with it. Am I right? I mean, seriously. Like if I had seriously talked to Lane Kiffin and Lane Kiffin told me, Colby, here's where I'm going. I'm going to go to LSU. I'm going to coach the Egg Bowl for Ole Miss. I'm going to make it official the day after the Egg Bowl on that Saturday. I'm going to sign my contract, and I'm going to immediately go to Baton Rouge. That if he says that, okay, and there's no restriction placed on me, and I don't have a NDA or nothing like that, and I'm not handcuffed, I would definitely come out and be like, Colby Allen from After the Whistle, the headline be Colby Allen from After the Whistle, a college football podcast, has said that Lane Kiffin is going to sign a contract with the LSU Tigers on Saturday after the Egg Bowl. Per Lane Kiffin. Then the information is correct, right? But a lot of it's hearsay, and a lot of it's hearsay by way of message boards, by way of this person told me that this person that said that this person said this. And things just get misconstrued. You remember in elementary school, some of you are probably, old enough to remember this. Some of you probably still play this to this day. If you do, I'm not judging. But there's a game called telephone. And you have, 5, 6, 10, 20 people lined up in a row or in a circle. And you have one person that picks a message, and they whisper it in one person's ear. And then the message goes down the line all the way back around. And when it gets back to that person, they say what the last person told them. And most of the time, and by most of the time, I would say an overwhelming majority of the time, those things get misconstrued, right? It gets misconstrued, it gets misinterpreted. And, you start with somebody saying, Jimmy likes to eat Frosted Flakes in the morning. And then you get to the end and it's like, Jimmy likes Lucky Charms in the evening or some crap. It's just like, it doesn't even, it has somewhat of a similar, not a mantra, but the layout's similar. It sounds similar, but the information inside of what's being said is completely different. So that the situation that we come into with the Lane Kiffin thing is very much the same. When you've got this person telling this person, telling this person, telling this person, it's a wonder why nobody has a clue what's going on right now. And I don't think anybody really does. I don't know how much I trust the report of the ultimatum. I don't know how much I trust the report of the LSU offer being on the table. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where we're just like, hey, let's just wait and see how it all turns out. Let's wait, let's see, and then we'll be able to, go, okay, well, that's what he was doing or whatever. I think that's the proper course of action here as it pertains to this whole fiasco, is just to, stop regurgitating information and just let it breathe for a little bit and then figure it out. Because there is some rumors out there that he's going to make it official after the Egg Bowl. The AD of Ole Miss came out and said that an announcement on Lane Kiffin's future was going to be the Saturday after the Egg Bowl. So there's a lot of speculation around that right now. Is he going to, is he going to announce then that he's staying with Ole Miss? Is he going to LSU? Is he going to Florida? I'm sure we'll find out then if we just give it time and quit speculating and, bringing things up. So, all right, so not a whole lot to talk about in Week 13. I know I previewed some games last week on the prediction show. We talked about a few. We talked about, Oregon, USC. We had a couple big matchups. We had a few things kind of surprised me. I mean, obviously, SEC, you've got a lot of teams, or pretty much a lot, well, not every team, but a lot of teams in the SEC playing. Georgia played Charlotte, won 35-3. Texas A&M played Samford, won 48-0. Big games of the weekend, obviously, had Missouri and Oklahoma. We'll talk about that one first, but Missouri and Oklahoma wins 17-6. Missouri not really able to get a whole lot going on the ground, which kind of talked about this and touched on this on Thursday's show, 35 carries for 70 yards. Oklahoma's defense, it was kind of a strength-on-strength matchup for this football game. It was not a matchup that Missouri really it didn't really favor Missouri. They get Bo Pribula, tongue twister there. They get Pribula back for this game. So there was a lot of people thought that might make a difference in the way their offense performed. Really didn't see a whole lot of a difference there. Oklahoma just smothered them. Only gives up 6 points and, 2 field goals. Didn't even really cross the 50 maybe once in the second half, but blanked in the second half. Just a overwhelming defensive performance for Oklahoma. That defense is for real. I mean, best defense in the SEC. I would definitely agree with that sentiment. If you're putting that out there, I'm definitely agreeing with that sentiment. Very good defense. The problem with Oklahoma is going to be the offensive inconsistencies. To me, are definitely something that raise a red flag for this football team. I feel like this football team's good. I feel like when they're on their A game defensively, they can pretty much hold anybody in the country under 20 points. If not less than 14 points. I mean, this defense is that good. The issue is, however, is this offense. Their inability to sustain drives, their inability to put it together and score points. They have to almost take advantage of the opportunities that the defense gives them. That's what we're seeing with Oklahoma. We see a defense that's very stingy. They force turnovers, they force fumbles, they get interceptions, they force 3 and outs, they force whatever. And the offense is kind of taking advantage of some like field position things. So I feel like this offense is just kind of mediocre. It's an 8-4, 7-5 offense with a 11-1 defense. That to me is, a little bit of a comparison between the two. And the reason that they're sitting here at 9-2 is because, both of those things complement each other and have complemented each other really well this year so far. The fear for me is Oklahoma is eventually going to run into somebody who can score more than 20 points, and that's Oklahoma's going to get beat. That's the theory on that one. As far as Missouri goes, 7-4, dropping to that record after the start that they had on the season. A lot of people kind of figured, Missouri was a little bit fraudulent, just judging by the fact of their schedule, up into the Alabama game. They were 5-0, but they had only beat UMass, South Carolina, Louisiana, Kansas, and Central Arkansas, I believe. So they had only beat those 5 teams. Toughest test being South Carolina, a 9-point win. Then they have Alabama come to town. Alabama wins by a field goal. Everybody still gave Missouri the credit that, oh man, that they're still not a bad football team. They only lost by 3 points to Alabama. And then it just kind of started to unravel. The 2 overtime win against Auburn raised some red flags for this football team. Then you get beat by Vanderbilt. Then you get beat by A&M. bludgeon Mississippi State, and then get beat by Oklahoma. So the season has definitely not gone like the way Eli Drinkwitz wanted it to go, obviously. With the injury to Prebula early, that kind of put them on a leg where they had to rely more heavily on the run game and Ahmad Hardy, which is, he's a workhorse back. You know, it's kind of one of those things he could do. But, when you're one-dimensional, it's very, very hard to get any kind of consistency built against a defense like Oklahoma. Other than that, though, Prebula in his first game back, 20 of 36 for 231, had the 2 interceptions, proved costly. Ahmad Hardy just couldn't get going, 17 carries for 57 yards. Mateer had a day where it showed some, a lot of people, myself included, have talked about since the injury to Mateer, he hasn't looked like he did pre-injury. Well, this was the first game where we saw Mateer, 14 to 30, so less than 50% completion. That's a problem, but 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then has 18 carries for 60 yards. He was actually Oklahoma's leading rusher in this football game. Satania, 109 yards receiving. Out of the 173 that Mateer threw for, 109 are Satania. Satania's great. Issue is want to spread the ball out a little bit more. Doesn't want to really laser in on one guy too much. But like I said, offensive woes for Oklahoma are going to be the story going forward. I don't see this offense putting up 40, 50 points. I really don't. We're not going to see it. This team on a very good day would put up maybe 30 on a good day. But when you think about, they've only hit the 30-point, marker 4 times this year, 5 times this year, but one was against Illinois State, one was against Temple, one was against Kent State. They put up 34, or they put up 26 against Ole Miss, and then they put up 33 against Tennessee. So only they have eclipsed the 30-point marker 4 times this year, only 1 time against a Power 4 opponent, and that is against Tennessee, who's got one of the worst defenses in the SEC. So, to me, other than that, when you look at these point totals for Oklahoma, you look at 23, you look at 17, you look at 26, 26, 6, 24, 24. They're going to live around the mid-20s in scoring. They're going to live around that 24, 26. That's where they're going to sit. That, to me, is an issue. Now, with that defense that they have, if that defense plays lights out, the defense shows up, doesn't make mistakes, can 26 points, 24 points win? Yes, absolutely. So, defense travels, defense, the old mantra, defense wins championships. So, can they? The question that I've seen raised is, can Oklahoma win a national championship? The stat brain in me is saying yes because of the defense, but just the more I watch this team, the eye test, you're asking your defense to play perfect every single week. Because a lot of these games that Oklahoma's won this year have been one-possession games. Let's be honest. They don't blow people out. They get in these slugfests where they win 26-23 or 24-21 or 24-20 or something like that. They don't ever win by 2 scores, 3 scores. They're not going to do it. So that to me is a cause for concern because you're putting a lot of pressure on your defense if your offense will not perform, and I think that will be Oklahoma's downfall eventually. Is going to be the fact that they just cannot on offense. The defense has to play perfect every single week, and we know these are college kids. Eventually, things are going to fall apart at one time or another. You just hope if you're an Oklahoma fan, it's not an untimely place for things to fall apart. So, we'll do some rapid-fire scores here in between, another marquee matchup, but like I said, I mentioned Georgia beating Charlotte, Texas A&M beat Samford. Notre Dame hanging 70 on Syracuse, making a little bit of a statement to the committee, maybe making a statement to me. I don't know. Hanging 70 on Syracuse. I mean, okay, cool. Alabama beats Eastern Illinois 56-0. Utah comes from behind. Now, this was one of the most interesting games of the weekend. Utah outscored Kansas State 30-16 in the second half to win this game 51-47. Very exciting football game. I caught the very tail end of it. This past weekend was my birthday weekend / anniversary weekend. So I was, obviously married fellas, watching football on Saturday. I had to catch bits and pieces, and then I had to kind of watch, a little bit here and there, and watch the highlights and look at the numbers and look at the stats, because wouldn't have been able to get away with much football watching if I'd have just sat on the recliner all day Saturday and done that. So, but either way, I caught the tail end of this football game with Utah and Kansas State. Really interesting football game. Utah, there's been talk like, could they get punished for this? The fact that they were down? No, a win's a win, and to me, it speaks more than that. It speaks more volumes that this team was able to fight back like they were to win this football game. I mean, in a game where Joe Jackson for Kansas State runs for almost 300 yards. I mean, man, just gashed Utah. And this was something that was surprising to me. It was one of those stat lines where I'm looking through and I'm like, okay, I've watched just a little bit of this game. Utah wins. I'm looking down the stats and I look and I'm like 24 carries for 293, 3 touchdowns. Over 10 yards a carry against Utah's defense. Unreal performance there. Even in a loss, Joe Jackson, respect. But Utah wins that football game. Miami beats Virginia Tech, 34-17. Vanderbilt absolutely just stomps Kentucky, 45-17. A Kentucky team that some SEC teams have struggled with this year. Just going to point that out. Also, we've got Pitt beating Georgia Tech, which is a upset that I called on the prediction show. Figured it'd be a little bit closer, but 42-28, a Pitt win. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. So here was the thing with this game was I was getting ready to take my wife out to dinner for our anniversary. So I was watching, I was watching a little bit of the Oregon USC game as I'm getting ready. And then all of a sudden, this Tech game comes on. We're leaving. So we leave the house, go to the restaurant. We get to the restaurant. So I wasn't going to check my phone all the time like I normally do. So shout out to my wife on that. But I think I did pretty good. But I did allot myself a few times to check my phone at dinner just to get an idea of where the scores were at. I opened my phone, and it hadn't been maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes since we had left the house and got to the restaurant and sat down, when I popped my phone open and Pitt was beating Georgia Tech 28-0. So threw all over Georgia Tech. I mean, and this is on Thursday I did mention it. This is a Georgia Tech team that defensively not what you would expect. Not good at all. Brent Key, the head coach of them, talks about, toughness and physicality. Well, you don't see a lick of that on that defensive side of the football. You don't see a lick of it. The only person that really gives you that toughness and physicality and gives you that maximum effort play in and play out is Haynes King. That's it. Other than that, this team's just not that impressive. The record, 9-1, fraudulent, 9-2 now. Just not a team that is as good as their record indicates. Feel like they've benefited from a little bit of a, soft schedule. They've benefited, it's luck of the draw sometimes when it comes to scheduling. You don't make your own conference schedule, but the teams that Georgia Tech has had to play this year, especially in conference, just, haven't been, they're not top half ACC teams. So we don't need to really act shocked when we see a team like Georgia Tech, 9-1 through 10 games in the season, when in reality, they've played teams like Syracuse. They've played Syracuse, they played Boston College, they played Virginia Tech, Duke, Wake Forest, Temple. They played a Clemson team. Now we know that Clemson team in week 3 that Georgia Tech beat wasn't really that good. And they beat a Gardner-Webb team, and then they beat Colorado by 7 points to start the season. So not really a gauntlet that Georgia Tech has really had to run through. And to throw a lot of credit on them, oh, they're 9-1. So what? there's plenty of teams out there that are 9-1 that aren't that good. So benefit to the schedule. Schedule maker deserves a raise, on that one. That's all I'm going to say. But Pitt, Pitt looked really good in this football game. Pitt looked really good, 226 yards on 20 of 27 for Heinzel. Ran the football really well too. Ja'Carrion Turner, 201 yards, I believe it was. Definitely over 200. And 20 carries. I mean, he was averaging 10 yards a carry. And that, to me, is the issue when you look at Georgia Tech and you look at what Pitt did right and what Pitt did. You got a Georgia team that's playing you Black Friday. Does Georgia run the football better than Pitt? I would say 1,000% yes. Better linemen, full stable of running backs, 4 to 5 deep at that position, rotating fresh legs in about every 2 or 3 downs. So that's an area of concern. 10 yards a carry against a Pitt running back who hasn't really been able to, who hasn't really done a whole lot of that this year. I mean, he's averaged about 5 yards a carry this year. I think he's got 600 yards, 115 odd carries is what I looked up. So not really a dynamite back. I mean, we're not talking about an Ahmad Hardy here or whatever, or a Jeremiah Love. But to average double what you normally average, season average of 5 yards a carry, you average 10 yards a carry against Georgia Tech. Area of concern there for the Yellow Jackets and Brent Key's team. Haynes King continues to be, the only shining spot, on this football team, with 76 rush yards, 257 pass yards, throws a couple picks, getting a little bit careless with the ball later in the season. That also is something that could come back and bite them in the butt. But, either way, Georgia Tech is on to clean old-fashioned hate against Georgia. Like I said, Black Friday. We will talk about that one later in the week on the prediction show. Moving on, Texas beats Arkansas 52-37. Big day for Arch Manning. Okay, 18 of 30, 4 touchdowns, 389 yards through the air. So big day for him as well. Big day for him here, dropping 52 points, kind of a little bit of a settle in, style game for Arch after, the game in Athens. Kind of a game for him to let loose a little bit. Also added, he didn't really have to carry the ball that much. I mean, he had 5 yards on 2 carries, and that was it. But Quintravion Wisner ran the football really well in this one. I mean, they were able to do whatever they wanted against Arkansas. Parker Livingston, the top receiver for Texas in this football game. What happened to the Texas defense? This was a unit that, before the season started, held Ohio State to 14 points. Okay? Nobody else has been able to hold Ohio State to 14 points all year since that game. So, this Texas defense that was supposed to be top 5 in the country all year pretty much, this was supposed to be a top defense. Now they're giving up 30-plus points a game to Arkansas. They're giving up 30-plus points a game to Georgia. It's just not really they're not really the dominant defense that we were expecting to see. It looked good earlier in the season, and then just kind of here, just kind of tapered off a little bit. So definitely some questions, here given up, in the last 4 games, essentially, Texas has given up 38 to Mississippi State. They've given up 31 to Vanderbilt, 35 to Georgia, and 37 to Arkansas. Going into their rivalry game against Texas A&M, that is an area of concern, and that's the area that needs to be buttoned down before that football game, because Texas A&M's got a very dynamic offense. Got a lot of ways they can hurt you. 2 receivers that can really hurt you, running back room that's really deep, quarterback that's really good, makes good decisions, also very light on his feet, very athletic. So that's an area of concern for Texas. Obviously, we'll talk about that game later in the week when we do the prediction show. But like I said, that's area for Texas that I feel like definitely needs some work, needs some refinement, I guess is the best way to put that. just for the sheer fact of this is a Texas defense that looked a lot better in the first half of the season. And this is a trend that is very disturbing. If I'm a Texas fan, I'm disturbed by it because, if we can't stop A&M, with that pass rush that they have, might be a long day. All right, so Tennessee beats Florida 31-11. Not much to really talk about there. I know I said on the prediction show that game, we talked about it briefly and said that this game has historically been a spot where some weird things happen. Nothing weird happened. Tennessee just beat the brakes off of Florida. Michigan beats Maryland 45-20. Wisconsin gets a win over a ranked opponent in Illinois 27-10. TCU and Houston, shout out to Houston for ruining my parlay. Had bet them, didn't do a dang thing. So shout out to them on that. TCU 17-14 over Houston. Tulane 37-13 over Temple. Arizona State 42-17 over Colorado. All right, so moving into the more marquee matchup of the weekend, and we have a couple things at the tail end of this show to address. One comes off of this game, and another one sprouts from a completely different issue. So, 42-27, the final score here, Oregon and USC. This was kind of a game for them to reestablish themselves, so to speak. This was kind of the game where we saw Oregon be that team that everybody's like, okay, that's who we thought they were going to be. Oregon here the last few weeks, people have been considering them and saying, are they potentially a little bit fraudulent? They haven't been looking that good. Dante Moore comes out and goes 22-30 for 257, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Noah Whittington running the football, great as usual, 19 for 104. Jordan Davidson, also 13 for 50. So nice little contingent there. 2 3-headed monster. Also, when you add in the fact De'Aaron Hill Jr., you add him into the fold there, you got a 3-headed monster there at running back. Malik Benson on the receiving end, 4 for 67. Jeremiah McClellan. They just have a lot of playmakers, but man, the one playmaker that just sticks out. He's just got, when you watch this Oregon team play, we watched the Georgia teams that were so dominant. 2 years they win the national championship. You had a guy like Brock Bowers, just a physical freak, tight end that can do it all, spread out wide, block, slot, backfield, you name it, mix him up. That is Kenyon Sadiq for this Oregon Ducks team. Kenyon Sadiq, one of the guys, the leading receiver, currently, listed as tight end number 18, but 6'3", 245, just a monster. And like I said, Swiss Army knife. They use him everywhere. They use him in the slot. They'll line him out wide. They put him in the backfield. They put him at the fullback position. In a down stance, like you name it. He's all over the place. Kind of reminds me of a Brock Bowers when he was in Athens. That's what that's what Kenyon Sadiq looks like. But this was I wouldn't say so much of a statement win for Oregon, but it kind of is we're still here, because a lot of people, Oregon takes the one loss. A lot of people just start to question, is this team as good as we thought they were? And the questions just start to mount about, this is this to me, definitely a not a coming out party, but a reestablishment, party for Oregon. They held the ball for, 33 minutes. Referees in this football game, to me, I feel like the stats on that are a little bit skewed. The fact that there's so many penalties committed by both teams. I feel like there were some very ticky-tack calls in this football game. But either way, both teams heavily penalized. Oregon had 130 penalty yards, for God's sakes. That you can't do that. Of all the things you can do, you can't do that. You can run the football really well, but penalties are drive killers. So definitely something for them to clean up. Where Oregon won this game, though, the rushing split. You know, you look at this in the metric, you look at Oregon with 179, 41 carries. Oregon, a team that committed to the run and stuck with it 41 times for 179 yards. USC, 28 carries for 52 yards. You know, absolutely couldn't get anything going on the ground. Jaden Maiava had to kind of do it all himself, throws a couple picks. There's your difference in the football game. Oregon rolls. USC still showing some signs of improvement, I would say, especially from last year, showing some definite signs that they're trending in the right direction with Lincoln Riley there at the helm. You know, I like Maiava, I like Lemon. This team is very talented. Just need to get a little bit better on the other side of the football. Lincoln Riley's never had any shortage of playmakers. He never has. You know, he's always had those, you know, freak wide receivers, and he's always had good quarterbacks. He's a very good quarterback guy. The issue has always been and will always be, I feel like, as long as Lincoln Riley's the head coach, the issue is and will always be the defense. Can't neglect the defense. You got to get it done, especially now that you're playing big boy football in the Big Ten Conference. Got to get it done. On the tail end of that football game, though, Dan Lanning made some comments that I'm not particularly crazy about, but I understand why he did it. And here, I'll start with the understand why first. Dan Lanning said what he said, and if you didn't hear what he said, then he made a comment after the game that, you know, that his team competed. They played a quality opponent. They didn't play a Chattanooga State like a lot of other people. Definitely a direct shot at the SEC in the scheduling. Now, here's what I say. Here's what I say to that. Nobody, myself included, I don't like the cupcake week thing for the SEC. I don't like it. I don't like where it's at. Every team in America plays a FCS opponent at some point throughout the year, perhaps two of them. They play them early in the year. I think the issue that a lot of people have with the SEC scheduling is a lot of people have the issue with the game being late in the year, like it is in that Week 13 slot, whereas they want to see a Georgia take on a insert whoever in that weekend instead of Georgia and Charlotte. No, it's kind of a sleeper weekend. But every team plays FCS opponents. I don't think that he's mentioning, like, you know, every team, you know, because I mean, we could easily debunk the myth. We could go down Oregon's schedule and we could tell you played Montana State to open the season, right? Okay. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. Yes, you play a 9-game conference schedule. That's fine. But you want to discredit somebody else. Now, here's the issue that I have with what Dan Lanning said. You know, the schedule's made years in advance. That schedule's made. Now, yes, the Week 13 thing, I'm not really a fan of the Week 13 cupcake week. I don't like it. I've never really cared for it. But here's the thing. You want to be a Big Ten coach. You want to coach at Oregon. You want to take shots at the SEC. When you're playing Montana State to start the season, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is that'd be the equivalent of a Chattanooga State, right? Well, then you play Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oregon State. Oh, your first ranked opponent, a Penn State team that you took 2 overtimes to beat them. Then you get beat by Indiana by 10. Then you play Rutgers. You play Wisconsin, who's terrible. You squeak by Iowa. Then you play Minnesota. Then you play USC. Not exactly a gauntlet, right? So this is the issue that I have with Big Ten people, is the argument that the Big Ten, top to bottom, is spread out and the talent is equal. Quit kidding yourself. Stop. The Big Ten has one elite team. One. Oregon's a good team. They're not an elite team. A lot of holes in that football team. You got one elite team. And the problem with the Big Ten is we don't know how elite that team really is. We have no idea because they haven't played anybody. But by all means, go off and talk about how much, by all means, go off and talk about the SEC scheduling and it being soft. That just, it's always been just a stupid Big Ten versus SEC argument because we really don't want to get into the schedule comparison. And, of course, all the Big Ten conspiracy theorist people are like, well, that's why there's so many SEC teams always ranked in the top 25 so that they don't fall out of the top 25 so the rest of the conference can classify them as ranked wins. Yeah, that's exactly what they've been doing for the last 20 years. Over the last 25 years, that's exactly what's been happening. No, you're 100% right. And that's exactly why an SEC team has won the national championship 90-something% of the time over the last 25 years. That's exactly why you're right. Yeah, sure. Yep. You have Big Ten's got 2 good years, Ohio State champion and a Michigan champion, and now all of a sudden they're kings of college football. And their scheduling is so much better. Ooh, a 9-game conference schedule. Well, 90% of your conference is dog water. They're terrible. Think about that. Think about, Ohio State's schedule, this year. You haven't had to play a premier team in the Big Ten. You just got off of I saw Ohio State fans talking about, we're not playing Charlotte like some people. You're playing Rutgers. Rutgers. You played Rutgers, UCLA, Purdue, Penn State without their coach, Wisconsin, bottom feeder of your conference, Illinois, not as good as everybody thinks, Minnesota, bottom feeder of your conference, Washington, terrible, Ohio, terrible, Grambling, and then you beat a Texas team by 7 points and only scored 14. So quit, Ohio State fans, please. For the love of Christ Almighty, stop acting like you're so much better than everybody else because it's annoying. And everybody is going to start to want to watch you lose because it's annoying when you tout this schedule as some kind of gauntlet. SEC scheduling's soft. Did you hear what I just read off to you? There's not a single one of these opponents in the top 15. Unranked. Michigan at 18. That's going to be your schedule. The first team that's going to be able to somewhat match you physically is ranked 18th in the country, and you play them in the final week of the regular season. So please, spare me our schedule's better than yours, and ours is tougher than yours. So Dan Lanning, kick rocks, dude. That was a dumb comment to make. I get it. You're fired up. Your team won. But shut up, dude. Let's not forget the last time that you played an SEC opponent. Let's remember. You opened the season against Georgia a couple years ago, and you got boat raced by 46 points. I'm sure that Georgia team went on to play a, cupcake in week 13. It didn't matter. They were better than you. They still are. So let's not let's not dig ourselves into a hole, or let's not, it's like my dad used to tell me, don't write a check that you're, can't cash. Don't do it. Because we don't want to, we would hate to see an SEC opponent in the playoff against an Oregon team. Maybe a Georgia against an Oregon. Because we all know how that game would probably go, right? Since Dan Lanning likes to say right after everything he says, right? So, I think we would see a really one-sided game, right? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So this whole notion around the Big Ten, I get it. It's conference rivalry. It's Big Ten. It's SEC, and everybody knows me. I cheer for the Georgia Bulldogs, so I'm more of a SEC guy. I'm from the South. So if you can't tell by the sound of my voice, and if you Haven't noticed that until now. I want to get something checked. But that herein lies the issue. It's a conference rivalry. It's always, oh, we're better than that conference. We're better than this conference. We're better than that. I think results on the field, win-loss totals, SEC versus Big Ten would speak for themselves. And they probably will this year too in the playoff. I'm just saying. But you tout your schedule, but don't act like your schedule is so much better. Just because you play a 9-game conference schedule, don't act like your schedule is so much better. I just read off two of your top teams in the conference. I just read off their schedules, and they're a joke. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Forrest Gump, got to quote it, otherwise we'll get sued, copyright infringement. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but movie quotes are kind of hairy things. All right, so going in, to week 14 now, we got rivalry week, hate week, what a lot of people refer it to. Got some big contests, got Texas and Texas A&M, got the game, Michigan and Ohio State. We have Egg Bowl, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, clean old-fashioned hate, Georgia Tech. Big week. Y'all expect a big show on Thursday. Got a lot to talk about, a lot of games, and probably going to run long. And I don't care because it's going to be a holiday and everybody's going to be enjoying Thanksgiving with your family, and you have nothing better to do than listen to my podcast. Am I right? So we will catch y'all next time on After the Whistle. Until then, I hope that the next few days go smooth for you at work. Have a few days off. Enjoy it with your family on Thanksgiving. Make sure to listen to the podcast. I don't care if it is Thanksgiving and you might be eating your grandmother's stuffing and turkey and dressing, whatever you eat. I don't care. Listen to the podcast. Have it playing in the background. Let your whole family listen to it. I don't care. But either way, catch y'all Thursday on the Prediction Show. It's been After the Whistle. Thank y'all for tuning in.